Christian Parenting.
Hi, Ashley. Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We've been able to chat just for a little bit before we started recording, and I just think we're going to have a lovely time. I've enjoyed getting to know you so far, but I want everyone else to get to know you a little bit too. So can you tell us about yourself, maybe about your family, and then what you do? Because we are in our series on school, and you are going to talk about public school today. So let's talk first about you and your family, and then tell us what you do in public education.
All right, sounds good. Okay, well, I just finished my 13th year teaching. I've taught at 5 schools, elementary level, been in 3 different districts around Dallas, and that has kept me busy. I got my degree in multidisciplinary studies, so it is a focus on general education as well as special education, and got my master's in counseling. Graduated in 2019. Haven't done much with it yet in education, but has given me some good tools to use as a teacher and a parent. I have 3 wonderful kids, 7, 4, and 2 girls and a boy. And I've been married to my husband for about 9 years. We met in Dallas and dated for a while, got married, and yeah, here we are.
And you currently have your 3 kids. One is in school.
Yes.
In first grade? Is that first
Yes.
grade?
Yeah.
First
My
grade.
oldest daughter just finished first grade. She's going
Okay.
into second. And then my 4-year-old daughter is at a church right by our house. She's in their preschool program. She'll be there again next year. And then my youngest son is at a daycare. And it just got bought out, but it's actually a government funded daycare. And so, yes, I have a child in government funded daycare, a child in private school, and my oldest in public school. So we are right now in the weeds of all 3 of them.
Yeah, which I think is going to be really interesting as we continue. And then you're working in the same public school, your daughter's school.
Yes.
So
yes. It is. It's a lot of fun. I love teaching. I don't think I realized how much I love teaching until I stopped teaching. So I taught for 11 years. I had my 2 little babies, my middle and my youngest. And when my daughter was about to start kindergarten, I felt God pulling on me and tugging and pulling and tugging. And, it's so easy to have like this view, especially like in our neighborhood. I have 3 kids. I can't work. I don't, how would I juggle all that? And I know that is true for a lot of families, but I was so lonely, and I just kept praying. I was like, what is it like that I need? And it really was community. I was really missing having a community. I think teaching has been such a big part of my life. And, it was the first August, I didn't have a first day of school, was just devastating. I was so upset.
you're like, I need to make my little sign.
And it was such a blessing being home. And I know that that's also something people strive for. And I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to give it a go and be at home with my babies. But I just really, really miss teaching. So yeah, I started teaching actually kindergarten the year that my daughter went to kindergarten, and her classroom was right next door to mine.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it was great.
And the world needs people like you who just want to get back to teaching, because it's hard to be a teacher. Really hard to be a teacher.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not for the faint of heart, but I even after like my longest days, I have people that I can look at, people that can love on me and hug me and fill my cup, and then I'm ready to go the next day. And I think that is what, for me, whether it is at whatever kind of community or school or church or whatever it is, like I found that is something I truly need to stay strong and just to like work through difficult moments, and especially like hard days of teaching, or my people.
Yeah. Well, okay. So in this series, we are talking about just different types of schooling options. We're talking about public school with you. We're talking about private school, homeschooling. We're talking about online school. So we're just kind of covering it all. And we are just going through what are some of the benefits of each option? What are some of the challenges? Like, what can families be looking for? How do they decide which way to go? So I kind of want to start with, let's just talk about the benefits. Like, what, from your experience, you were publicly educated too. That's what you said before.
Yes.
So you went to public school, your daughter's in public school, you teach in a public school. So what are some of like the strengths and like opportunities, the benefits of public schools?
Okay. Well, it's so hard to kind of pinpoint, what, because public school for me, I didn't feel like at the beginning was really even like there was a choice outside public school. I grew up going to
Mhm.
public school. A lot of families did not go to private school. I can't tell you really more than one or two private schools outside of Houston. That's where I grew up. People went to. Everyone just went to public school. And then
Mhm.
when I came to Dallas, that was really more where private school came up. And I it I didn't understand why it was such a big like topic. Now seeing how a private school functions, my daughter's been, at a private school right over by us for a couple of years. My oldest daughter was there before she went to her neighborhood school. I can see the appeal of private school, and I think it's such a great setup. But for our family, I think public school has been such a great and challenging experience. But I think that it's going to serve us well in the long run and how we've been able to tackle things. But I would say that some strengths or some benefits for our family being in a public school is the opportunities to just serve our community and our neighbors. I know there's a lot of opportunities within churches and also in all schools that you can, give back. But for us specifically, we're able to see families and kids that are in our classrooms and in our hallways and in our neighborhoods being blessed by the things that we're able to provide. And it truly is like, feels so communal because
Mm.
you go and we have an angel tree drive, which angel tree is very popular, but I've never had an angel tree where we got to specifically give to kids in my classroom or in the classrooms next to me, and being able to see them walk away and open up these gifts that I have been gifted by another family that I'm good friends with, and being able to like share, you know just like the joy and the just overwhelming gratefulness for these products or these things that we take for granted has been really, really, really fulfilling. So I would say that that is one thing that I do love about our community and our school is that we can kind of see the benefits of our service. Another thing that I think is really neat about being in a public school where the Christian faith isn't the forefront. I have to be persistent, and I have to be intentional about meeting other believers and meeting other Christians.
Mm.
And when I first started teaching, that was so difficult because I'm a teacher and there's a line, and you're trying to figure out and navigate like, how do I build a relationship with these parents who are also like my neighbors, but also still remain in the boundaries of me as an educator. But over time, I realized I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can actually like cut it off because I need help, and I need these people. And I had students last year who we have a large spectrum of families and diversity. I have kids who look and talk and go to the same church as we do on our street, and then we have other kids who may not have shoes that they wore to school that day. So we have a large spectrum of needs and families. But being able to meet other Christians and other believers, I can go to them and say, hey, without saying names or anything, I have a student in need or I have a family in need. Can I, you know, get some help? And that was hard to do at first, trying to figure out like, okay, I don't want to like cross any boundaries. I don't want to be unethical, but I also have to see these poor kids come to school every day, and I can't navigate a whole classroom of kids, come home and be a mom, and then also make sure these children are clothed and fed. It
Mm.
was just a
Mhm.
lot to carry. And I would come home the first like 5 or 6 months just distraught. And I could just feel like, God pushing me every day, like, go back, go back, go back. Cause there's a point I was like, I don't know if I'm equipped for this. I don't know if I'm strong enough for it. I wanted to give up really, really quickly. And being able to, there was one day that it was around Christmas, and we were doing this setup where our kindergartners get to meet with these like fourth graders, and they could do like crafts together and have a snack, and it's so cute. And they have like a little role model, and the kindergartners just loved one student. She got her snack and she got her lunch, or she got all of her stuff, a little snack and her drink, and she was trying to put it in her pockets. So I went over and I said, "Hey, what do you want to do with your snack or with your drink? Why are you putting it in your pocket?" And she was like, "I want to save it for home for this weekend." And it dawned on me that she doesn't know the next time she's going to eat until she gets to school
Mm.
on Monday. And I had experienced that enough that I was shielded to be able to go to my room and get, extra snacks and stuff to pack in her backpack to send home. But I had another parent who saw our interaction and kind of put together the pieces. And she got my number and texted me, I mean, within like an hour of this happening. And she was like, "My name is so and so. And I just want to know how I can help. What can I do?" That was hard to watch. And through that, I was able to help get funds together to reach out to people so we could create an ice cream fund, so that every child could get ice cream on Fridays, because that is ice cream costs more than lunches, and a lot of our kids are on free reduced lunch. They can't afford to get the ice cream, and it's really a bummer. And when you're 5 years old and every Friday you get to see kids in front of you get ice cream and you don't, and it was hard to watch. So that gave me the encouragement to like reach out and ask for more help. And then this mom ended up becoming one of my good friends. And now we go to church together. And so for me, the benefit was being able to make a connection with other believers through acts of service and acts of faith, that I've never really experienced before. And that's been a really, really fulfilling thing.
Yeah. Well, then, and as your kids grow too, they'll be able to see that there's a diverse world over there, out there, and
Mm,
like not everybody lives the same lifestyle that we do. Not everyone has the same things, and for our kids to be able to see that and interact with those people, not as others, but as part of their community, that's a huge gift
hmm
that is given when you are in a setting like that.
Yeah, I don't think I really realized how much how fulfilling it would be for me to not just go back to teaching, but such a deeper load that God was putting on me. And at first it was, hard and I felt weak. And there were so many times the devil was just in my ear, like, "You are not equipped for this. You can't do this. You're not strong enough." And I'm not strong enough. But God willing, like, I've been able to get the wisdom from him and the strength from him to be able to like continue pursuing our school and serving our families, and then also being there with my kids and them being able to see how we can continue to without even speaking Jesus's name, but show who he is through our acts and through our kindness and through our love and mercy. I think that that's been so much more than my husband and I ever anticipated. That was not something we ever discussed in, premarital counseling at our church, or when we were discussing what schools our kids would go to. This was so unexpected, but I truly believe that God has set me up since day one to be able to learn how to be a teacher, how to be a good teacher, how to work with kids, various learners. Because when I came to this school, I had done those things and not mastered them by any means, but they came so much more naturally. And then I could put my energy, my focus on, okay, how do we build our school to be safe for all kids? And how do we make sure that everyone's walking away happy and healthy, and that they're taken care of?
Yeah. Well, I feel like when you think about where your kids are going to go to school, and like I'm going to send my kids to public school, like some of the reasonings, might be like there are more services at public schools and it's free and they get to just like ride the bus, or, there are a lot of reasons that people would think of from that perspective. But I don't think very many people are thinking about the way they get to serve their community. And so I think it's really good to hear that there are teachers out there who are just trying to serve in the name of Jesus and just be missional like that. I think it's just really important for people to hear that. So I appreciate your stories and your perspective of that. What are some of like the challenges that you faced as a teacher, or that parents or even students might encounter in a public school setting if they're
hmm
believers?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is that in a public school setting, prayer, worship, Christian community isn't as attainable. It's something you have to pursue. It's not something that's going to be at the forefront of conversation. And when you go to assemblies and you go to these different school functions, assemblies, like, we're not going to be opening in prayer. And I understand that that is like important to some people, and like the power of prayer is so important. you know, I think that it's important to, when you go into a public school setting and you want to, um, find community within your beliefs and find people that are pursuing Jesus. You just have to be more intentional about it and trying to find that. I think another challenging part as a parent is sometimes the mature conversations I have to have with my kids that I was not prepared to have. And that can happen anywhere. That's not just at a public school. But when you do have so much diversity, it's great because your kids are exposed to the world underneath your roof. So you can navigate those things with them versus them
Yeah.
experiencing the world not under your roof. But sometimes language, conversations, dialogue, just even their physical appearance, there could be confusion. And sometimes when kids are confused, they avoid. They avoid and they question, and they're not trying to be offensive. They're just curious and they don't really know how to navigate it. And so my husband and I have had to just shield ourselves to being open to having all conversation with our kids and making sure they know that they can ask us anything and we want to answer all of their questions, and that not everybody is going to act or look or do things like us. And I'll have to tell my kids sometimes, you know what, our family rule is this. This is what
Mm.
we believe. However, we respect other people's beliefs and this or that. And you can come home and ask me anything that you want to. But we have our church friends and then we have all of our friends. So we have people that are not going to look and act like us the same way they're probably looking at us thinking they don't look or act like us. But sometimes those conversations can be off putting with a 7-year-old, depending on the level of maturity there is around us. So that can be really challenging a lot of the times, but it's also an opportunity for us to kind of go back to the Bible and like, what is biblical truth here? Like, what does the Bible say? And try to also model like grace and a level of not necessarily acceptance, but respect for differences with other people.
Mhm.
I think it's sometimes easy to say, like, well, I just don't play with them or I just don't, be around them. But that's not what I want them to do. I don't want them to just avoid it because I want to avoid the conversation. So sometimes that can be really tricky navigating in a public school as a parent is sometimes things that they're exposed to.
Yeah. I actually know a family who their kids were in private school and they moved over to public school for many reasons. But one of the benefits that they saw was that they were able to have those conversations and not necessarily like purposely expose their kids, but have their kids interact with the world in a very different way, in an unsheltered way, in a public school way, where you're having to have some conversations because people look and act and believe different things. And they said the unexpected benefit was that they got to do it while they were under their roof. And they didn't just go to college all of a sudden and feel like, oh my gosh, I have all these questions I never knew. So that I like that you brought that up too. Not that it's the only way. Again, these interviews are
Mm-mm.
meant to give all of the benefits, all of the hard parts, and just say, like, there's something good and bad in all of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we discussed earlier, I told you that my sister is deaf. And so growing up for me, she didn't have any school that she had access to. Like, there wasn't a deaf education system in our school district, and we had a great school district. And she had to actually go to school in Austin
Mm.
when she's starting in middle school because there wasn't an education system for her. And this is in the 90s. This isn't that long ago. And that was really disheartening to see as a kid, having to see like your sister not have a place to go to learn. And it was challenging for me to see my parents juggle. That was hard. And so I think my perception of like public school is like, gosh, what a blessing. Any person can go here. Like, and if there's not a system or a resource in place or someone trained, and whether it's, American Sign Language, or a lot of our kids now are diagnosed with, we have almost like 1 in 4 kids is diagnosed with dyslexia, that we have therapists and people on campus there and ready to work with them
Mhm.
and help them kind of just level the playing field. So that's also like such a gift to know that any family that comes into our school, if we don't have the resources they need, we will provide them.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes we forget how amazing that is. Like, we, like, well, no matter, like, your kid has somewhere to go to school and for free. Like, it's just like, I think as Americans, we sometimes just forget how blessed we are that that is an option. That is really good. And yes, there are challenges, but it's really good.
Yeah.
We're so lucky.
My grandmother is half black and half white, and her and her sisters were not accepted at during segregation at the white schools or the black schools. They had to
Uh,
be homeschooled, and so, whenever she always brings such wisdom to the table and humbles me very quickly when I'm complaining about essentially like first world problems about the school and this, we don't
yeah.
have funding for this, and da, da, da. She's like, I'm just so thankful that your kids have somewhere to be where they're safe and they're happy. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
grandma, you're right. Like, thank you for that reminder. Like, thank you for speaking truth to me because I need to remember the basics, that my kids have a safe place to be. That we have, administration who truly, truly, truly loves our kids. They love, love, love our kids. And there are kids who are so challenging. And right now we're in VBS and we're learning John 13:34, love one another as I've loved you. And my daughter was asking me, she was like, I don't really understand this verse. And I was like, okay, what part is tricky? And she goes, well, I do love you and I do love my sisters and I do love my friends. And then I was like, okay, this is such a good teaching point. And it's actually a really good like observation. And you know what? Like, obviously, we love our family, we love our friends, but it's the ones who are hard to love, the
Hmm.
ones that, Jesus left the 99. Like, who is it that needs the most love is usually the one who's the most challenging. And it's important for, I've had to work on how to practice that as a teacher. And I think in any experience in life, whether you're at work or you're in school, there's always that one person who's just more challenging for you to love on and care for. And so that's been a really good experience for us as a family to work through these students or people that we experience that may be really challenging for us to love on. But trying to work through that, it's really built our faith significantly.
Yeah, that's incredible. As parents are trying to navigate like making a decision for their kids, like do we go to public school? Do we go to private school? Do we homeschool? Like what are all the options? Because there are so many now. What are some of the like misconceptions that Christian parents might have about public schools that you'd kind of like to clear up from your
Well,
from your perspective?
you know, I think some of the things that we hear a lot, especially like through the news and social media about, gender identification and the racial critical theory, and all those things that are in the forefront of the news. I'm at an elementary level, so I can't speak to it, but I will tell you that conversations around pronouns and gender identification and these teachings that may not be aligned to what your family's wanting to discuss or be your children be exposed to, they're not happening. There been in enough districts and schools to tell you that as a teacher, it is so challenging just to get to the basic math, reading, writing, social studies content. That in itself is challenging. Unless there is a teacher who has a different agenda, which I've never come across in 13 years ever, like you're the schools are there, the teachers are there to love on your kids, to teach your kids. The purpose of school is to learn. That is the purpose of school. Every teacher that I've come in contact with over 13 years has only had that in the forefront of their mind is to love on your child, keep them safe, and have them prepared for the skills that they need for the next year. But I think that sometimes there is, and when you don't know, you don't know. And so you do rely on the news, you do rely on other things for information, and that's valid. But speaking from personal experiences, never once has those things have ever been brought up in any school I've been at, or any surrounding school or district that I've been in. There is nothing that the teachers are doing that you would not align with, regardless of what faith you are. That every teacher is there to just teach your child how to read, how to write, and how to be able to have life skills. And that's
Yeah.
really, there's no other agenda. So I would say that is one misconception that I would like to speak to. And I guess the second being, whenever we were having a challenging year last year, my husband and I looked at each other many times and thought, do we need to go to private school? Is this too much? Is this too much? Is this too much? Like, and the thing is like, I'm aware because I'm an adult, and then I have had more experiences. And there's one day that we were going to go and tour a private school, and I was at the grocery store with my daughter, and I was singing like Christmas songs or something silly. And she goes, "Oh, lo siento, por favor." I go, "So you just told me to be quiet in Spanish?" She goes, "Yes." And I go, "Where'd you learn that?" And she told me, like, one of her friends from class. She goes, "Oh, so and so taught me how to say it whenever, I want her to like stop singing in Spanish or stop doing this in Spanish, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "Sorry, mommy, I didn't mean to be disrespectful." I was like, "No, like, I love that you learned that. I think that's so cool." And it was a moment that I was like, okay, she is happy. Like,
Mm.
I may not be happy because I had this idea in my head that I'm going to go to teach at my neighborhood school and it's going to be a dream. I've loved every school I've taught at. I get to be with my daughter, and this is my neighborhood. I'm so excited. I was so just like giddy, and I just was like, what could go wrong? And everything went wrong.
Mm.
And I was like, this isn't a hurt, like my children issue. This is a me issue. That my child is happy, and she is learning, and she is thriving, and she became more empathic her kindergarten year than I've ever seen. Just aware of different things that she wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. And so that was a moment I was like, when my husband and I think about what's important, we want our kids to know Jesus, and we want them to know that they identify with the Lord. They don't identify with a school. They don't identify with a team. They don't identify with friends. They identify with Jesus, and that everything else will come with it. And I was actually listening to one of your interviews that you had done. It was Tom Worley. It was someone, and he said something
Pilot
along the line
Worley.
of yes. And he
Yeah.
is like, I identify you. How do you teach your kids to identify with Jesus? And it's like, first, you identify with Jesus, and then then your identify with your community. And I love that visual, because if I have a strong biblical foundation of truth, then everything else around me is going to be a lot easier to navigate. And so I finally just turned my brain off and like had to just open my heart up and soften my heart to what God wants me to do at this school and what is our family plan. And it was really difficult because I felt like the easy way out would be private school. And there are so many experiences that you get in a private school you don't get in a public school. And there's resources and things that are available that are, that public schools will never have. But when I also think about, I really would love for my daughter and all three of my kids to be able to go on after, they leave our nest and be able to like speak truth about Jesus confidently. And I know that they're at least getting the practice now because they have more opportunities to speak the gospel in our school and to serve others. And I think too, my daughter's less anxious when she becomes less selfish, when she's putting her eyes towards other people. And when I'm putting my eyes towards other people, and it's not, what do I want? What do I want? Am I not happy? Am I not happy? What's going on with me? And I started shifting my focus from like me, I'm not happy, to like, wait, which kids in this room aren't happy? And like, what can I do? The whole year changed. And I've
Mm.
been able to start this year. I feel like being able, less selfish, and more intentional about, how God wants me to use me each day. So going back to your question on, how do you decide, how do you navigate, which schools to go to? I think you have to think about, the purpose of school is to learn.
Mhm.
That's the purpose of school. That's why your child goes to school, to have the tools and the skills that they need to continue to be successful, independent, whatever that looks like for you. And, as a family, our core is Jesus, and we can navigate that with being very grounded in our church. And we have our church community, and we have our wonderful children's ministry, and we have church friends. And what's so beautiful about it is that when we were looking for a church a couple years ago, we wanted a church within our community. And we tried out this one church, and my husband was like, it's too big, it's too big, it's too big. The whole conversation, which church is right for you? And it's every church is right. But when we walked into that church, we saw shirts everywhere with our mascot, our high school, our school, our community. And it was like such a profound moment. And the woman that had just texted me to help me with a student at that thing was walking through the door, and our kids were in Sunday school together, and her husband was the Sunday school teacher. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was so powerful. And we joined right away. And it's been just such a beautiful moment to just not only be able to serve within my school, but then also see some of the same families in my church. And so I think, you know, when you're trying to navigate, you know, do private school, you do public school. For us, private school wasn't really an option, but it's not something we had financially planned for. And I guess we're maybe a little too naive to think that, you know, we would be unhappy at a public school. But once we kind of faced those challenges last year at our neighborhood school, we had to just shift our focus into, okay, where are our kids at? Are they learning? Are they growing? Are they thriving?
Mhm.
And their faith was only being more secured the more time they were spending there and being exposed to all the different families and things that happens at a public school.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that insight because I think parents do worry about that. It's like, are they not getting that extra element of faith at a public school? And no, they're not. I talk about all the time on this podcast that faith happens at home, and church is a bonus. Your community is essential, but church is a bonus for learning about the gospel. It happens at home primarily. Like that is just what the research tells you. And so, yes, school is great if you can go to a Christian private school and get that extra bonus. Then you have two bonuses. That's cool, but it's not going to be the end all be all for your kids. Like what they learn at home and in their church community is where they're going to learn their faith. And then they get to go exercise it at school. And that's really cool. Like our kids play community baseball. They do sports in the community. It's been really cool to see them sharing their faith and like inviting team members to pray with them before games. And these kids are like, what? Like, I guess I'll do that. What are you doing? But for our kids, it feels normal. For these other kids, it doesn't. But they invite them in and they do it, and
Yeah.
it's just cool to see them be able to shine the light of Jesus in a place that it usually isn't. And that is just a gift. And it's cool to be able to see it as a parent and see as they're growing too, how they get to do it more and more.
Yeah. We have a woman, a mom in our grade level that wants to do a summer mother daughter Bible study. And so we got the book Braver, Stronger, Smarter by Sissy Goff. And we're going to meet every Saturday and I'll take turns, kind of hosting and leading each week. And these aren't families from our church. These are families from our school. And
Yeah.
so being able to have that conversation about Jesus and have community and worship together is really, really neat. I think it only makes our school stronger. But with, you know, we have that. I had a group of third grade boys. They met for Bible study before school. And I noticed that a few boys from my class who I don't know their spiritual background, everyone was invited and they would go. And
Yeah.
they went and they ended up, joining them for church on Sundays and, being able to see these kids, socially, they want to be involved. They want to be with everybody and doing all the fun stuff together. But, you know, they also get to learn about like the Lord and may not have the means to be able to get to church or, in a family who, speaks another language and trying to find a home church is challenging. That's also been a really beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Do you have any, just to wrap our time up, have any last encouragement for parents who are trying to figure out what they're going to do for school?
Man, well, I think that the best advice that I can give that took me a long time to figure out was what is the most important thing to us? Besides, obviously, within our home, we want this to be a core of our family is Jesus. But in our school, what do we want? It was like, do we want differentiated learning? Do we want a, crafty, cute teacher? Do we want great communication? Do we want small class sizes? Do we want large class? Like, there's so many layers to
Hmm.
want, and you're not going to get them all. You will
Yes.
not get them all at any type. It does not matter. I have worked
100%.
in one of the top elementary schools in Texas. There were still parents unhappy. You have to think, what are your top 3 things that are most important for your child? And for us, in school, outside of our faith, the most important thing is that our child is challenged and that they're growing. And whether that our child is a traditional learner, untraditional learner, it's important that our child grows and learns at their own pace, in their own way. The second thing that for us that we've realized is one of our most important things that we didn't realize until we found it was community.
Yeah.
The people that we've met, the families that we've met in our school have been life changing. These will be friends for the rest of our lives. But then also too, just the feeling of safety and security, knowing that I know a lot of these parents and families, so I know where my child is. I know who I can rely on, and also who I can ask for prayers and for wisdom and for help. So for us, it was community, and then our children being academically challenged and growing and learning. And then the third for us, communication, which we love being involved, engaged. I will tell parents that you are your child's biggest advocate. No one else is going to speak for them but you. If you feel pulled to email your child's teacher about something big or small, email them. If there is something that you would like to, good or bad, positive or negative, that you would like to share with the school or with the principal or whatever it is, share it. I think that sometimes we, maybe have this perception, maybe it's just me, that in private school, because it is a paid program, that, parents have a lot more say in it. But I really do want to implore families in public school you have a voice too. And it's important that you express it. Share the good, share the celebrations, the wonderful things that are happening that your child share with you and that you've experienced at the school. And then also, respectful communication around things that you would like to see within your child's school, that you would like to see for your child. I think that is also very empowering. So, I talked to a lot of parents who are like, I just, I really keep thinking about reaching out, and I'm like, do it. Because if you don't, no one else is going to for them. And so I would say that those are probably, to pray about what are your, outside of your faith, what are your core values for your child? And every child is so different. So, I have 4 younger brothers and sisters, and we all went to different schools.
Sorry, my dog started barking. That's why I muted. I'm paused. I'm oh, stop. So sorry. Sorry.
No worries.
No.
But we all went to different schools, and we all came out just fine.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate those are super practical tips and really good encouragement and a good reminder too that it can look different and depending on what your priorities and needs are. And you just have to make the right choice for your family and be prayerful about it and know that God will meet you where you are because he always does. He's faithful and he's good. And he actually cares about our kids more than we do, as hard as it is to understand that and to wrap my brain around that. I know it to be true. So I really appreciate all of your insight and for taking time to talk to us about this. I know it's just a huge topic that parents just think about so much and worry about. So thank you for helping just navigate a little bit of it with us.
Of course. No, I really appreciate your time, and that was so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christian parenting.